Hey everyone, and welcome back to Becoming Ultimate Masters.
Mm-hmm.
We're all about helping you navigate this crazy thing called life. And today we're diving deep into something super relevant,
Yeah.
especially for young adults and high schoolers like you.
Oh, yeah.
It's about learning to love all those messy, imperfect parts of ourselves and the people around us.
Yeah, that's a great place to start.
Exactly.
So much of the stress and anxiety we experience comes from this pressure
Yeah,
to be perfect, to always have it all together.
exactly. And today's deep dive is inspired by Haemin Sunim's book, Love for Imperfect Things, which is like a roadmap to finding peace in a world that's obsessed with perfection.
Mm.
So have you read this book?
I have, yeah.
What are some of the key takeaways that stood out to you?
Well, the book really resonated with me on several levels. One of the most powerful ideas is that this pressure to be good
Hmm.
can actually be detrimental to our well-being. Think about it, so many of us, especially those who were raised with constant praise for being well-behaved and agreeable, feel this immense pressure to maintain that image, to never disappoint. But that can lead us to neglect our own needs and suppress our emotions, which
Ah,
ultimately causes more suffering than it prevents.
wow, that's so true. It's
Yeah.
like we're so focused on pleasing others that we forget to check in with ourselves.
Yeah.
And the book actually talks about this, right?
Absolutely. There's a really powerful anecdote where Haemin Sunim talks about being advised to be good to yourself first, then to others, and how that was a complete game changer for him.
Oh, wow.
It's such a simple idea, but it really highlights how self-care isn't selfish. It's essential for healthy relationships and personal growth. We can't pour from an empty cup, right?
Right. That makes total sense. It's
Yeah.
like we have to put on our own oxygen mask first
Right.
before we can help anyone else.
Right.
And I think this idea of self-compassion is particularly relevant for young people who are constantly bombarded with images of perfection on social media. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a really important point. This constant comparison to others' carefully curated online personas can be incredibly damaging to our self-esteem. We only see the highlight reel, not the behind-the-scenes struggles, and that can make us feel inadequate. The book actually talks about how we tend to compare our insides to others' outsides. We see the surface of their lives, but are acutely aware of our own imperfections.
It's like comparing a rough draft to a finished masterpiece. It's just not a fair comparison. So how do we break free from this cycle of comparison and start embracing our imperfections? What does the book suggest?
Well, one of the key messages is that embracing our imperfections is an ongoing journey, not a destination. It's about shifting our mindset from self-criticism to self-compassion. Instead of berating ourselves for our flaws, we need to treat ourselves with the same kindness and investment as we would a loved one.
Yeah, that makes sense. Instead of focusing on what we're not, we should celebrate what we are.
Right.
So what are some practical ways we can do that? Does the book offer any specific advice?
Absolutely. One thing that really resonated with me was Haemin Sunim's advice to allow ourselves small luxuries, to use the good things we've been saving. So often we deny ourselves pleasure, thinking we don't deserve it or that we need to earn it. But the truth is, we are worthy of joy and self-care, in whatever form that takes for each of us.
You mean like actually using that fancy bath bomb instead of saving it for a special occasion
Exactly.
or wearing that cute outfit instead of waiting for the perfect moment?
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we don't need to wait for some external validation to enjoy life. We can create those moments of joy for ourselves right now.
That's such a great reminder. It's so easy to get caught up in this idea that happiness is something we have to achieve rather than something we can choose to experience in the present moment. So for all of you listening, remember, you are worthy of love and happiness just as you are, imperfections and all.
And remember, allowing yourself those small pleasures isn't about being materialistic. It's about recognizing your inherent worthiness and treating yourself with kindness.
I love that. It's like giving ourselves permission to enjoy life, to not take ourselves so seriously. It's about recognizing that we're all a work in progress, and that's perfectly okay.
And that's a great point to transition into the next section of the book, which explores the importance of extending that same compassion to others, especially in our relationships.
Okay.
Because let's be honest, relationships can be messy and challenging,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. But that's where the real growth happens, isn't it? Learning to navigate those complexities is a huge part of becoming a mature, well-rounded individual.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're all about here at Becoming Ultimate Masters, helping you develop the skills and insights you need to thrive in all areas of life.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So are you ready to delve into the messy but beautiful world of relationships?
I am. Yes.
Totally. I'm excited to hear what the book has to say about navigating those challenges. with love and empathy.
Great, then let's dive in. So, we've been talking about self-love and how important it is to treat ourselves with kindness, but the book doesn't stop there. It goes on to explore how the self-compassion can actually ripple outward and influence our relationships with others.
That makes a lot of sense. So like once you start accepting your own imperfections,
Yeah.
you naturally become more understanding and forgiving of others, right?
Exactly. And the book highlights a really interesting point about how physical touch can actually help foster those
Oh
connections.
yeah. I remember that Haemin Sunim talks about the power of a hug, how it can act as this protective layer against stress
Mm.
and create a deeper sense of connection.
And there's actually scientific evidence to support this.
Oh, wow.
Studies have shown that hugging can release oxytocin, which is often called the love hormone,
Huh.
and it can also lower levels of cortisol, the stress hormone.
Wow. So hugging literally has physiological benefits. That's pretty cool.
It is, and I think it speaks to this innate human need for connection, for physical touch.
Yeah.
We're social creatures, and that physical contact can be so powerful in communicating love and support.
Absolutely. And there's this really moving anecdote in the book where Haemin Sunim talks about hugging a grieving woman at his book signing. He could sense her pain and just instinctively reached out to hug her. It's a beautiful example of how sometimes the most powerful way to help someone is simply to offer a compassionate presence.
I love that story. It speaks to the essence of empathy, meeting people where they are without judgment. And I think it ties in beautifully with another key takeaway from this section, which is the importance of listening as an act of love.
Yeah, listening is so underrated. We're often so quick to offer advice or try to fix things, but sometimes the most helpful thing we can do is just listen without judgment.
Exactly. It's about creating a safe space for someone to share their thoughts and feelings without feeling pressured to put on a brave face. And sometimes that's all it takes to help someone feel seen and supported.
I think that's such an important message, especially for young people
Mm.
who are often dealing with a lot of complex emotions and pressures. It's
Mhm.
so easy to feel like you have to have all the answers, but sometimes the best thing you can do is just be there for someone and listen.
Absolutely. And that's a skill that will serve you well throughout your life, in all your relationships with friends, family, romantic partners, colleagues.
So we've talked about self-love, empathy, the power of touch, and listening. What I find interesting is that the book also delves into this really insightful chapter on understanding our fathers.
Yes, this chapter was particularly thought-provoking. It explores the complexities of the father-child relationship and acknowledges that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to understanding this dynamic.
It's so true. Every family is different and every father-child relationship is unique.
Exactly. And Haemin Sunim presents 5 different prototypes of father-child dynamics in the book. He talks about how these dynamics can be influenced by cultural norms, personal experiences, and even generational trauma.
That's fascinating. So it's not just about understanding our own fathers,
Yeah,
but understanding the broader context that shaped them.
precisely. And there's this incredibly poignant anecdote in the book where Haemin Sunim confronts his own anger and resentment towards his ailing father. He digs deep into his father's upbringing and begins to understand the root of his behavior. It's a powerful example of how empathy can bridge even the most challenging divides.
Wow, that's a really powerful story. It reminds us that everyone is carrying their own baggage, their own unseen wounds.
And by understanding those wounds, we can start to move towards compassion and forgiveness, both for ourselves and for others.
It's like that saying, hurt people hurt people. But when we can understand the source of that hurt, it can help us break the cycle and cultivate more loving and supportive relationships.
Exactly. And that's a great segue into the final concept from the book, which is about letting go and accepting what we cannot change.
This is something we all struggle with, right? Whether it's a past hurt, a missed opportunity, or a fear that's holding us back. Learning to let go can be so challenging.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But as Haemin Sunim points out, holding on to those negative emotions doesn't serve us. It just keeps us stuck in the past.
So how do we let go? What does the book suggest?
Well, it starts with understanding that letting go doesn't mean forgetting or erasing the past. It's about detaching from the painful emotions attached to those memories.
That sounds really hard. How do we do that?
The book emphasizes the importance of acceptance. It's about acknowledging that we can't control everything that happens to us, but we can control how we respond.
So it's about shifting our focus from what we can't change to what we can.
Exactly. And that includes our own thoughts and feelings.
So instead of trying to suppress or deny our difficult emotions, we should try to accept them.
Yes. And that might sound counterintuitive, but the book encourages us to observe those emotions with detachment and compassion.
So it's like creating space for those emotions rather than letting them take over.
Precisely. And that space allows us to respond to challenges with wisdom and clarity, rather than reacting out of fear or anger.
I love that. It's like we're taking back our power by choosing how we respond to those difficult emotions.
Exactly. And that's a really empowering message, especially for young people who might feel like they're at the mercy of their emotions.
This has been such an insightful exploration of love for imperfect things. And I think we've covered a lot of ground. We've talked about self-love, empathy, understanding our fathers, and letting go.
And we've just scratched the surface. This book is full of wisdom and practical advice that can help us navigate the challenges of life with more grace and compassion.
Absolutely. And I hope you're all feeling inspired to embrace your own imperfections and show a little more love and compassion to those around you. So as we wrap up this deep dive into love for imperfect things, I want to circle back to this idea of letting go,
Yeah,
because I think it's something we can all relate to on some level,
it is. Yeah, it's definitely a universal struggle.
for sure. And what I found really helpful in the book is this idea that letting go is not a one-time event, but an ongoing practice.
Yeah, it's not a one and done. It's like
No.
learning to ride a bike. You're going to fall a few times before you find your balance. But with practice, you get better at it.
Exactly. It's about building that muscle of resilience, learning to bounce back from setbacks and disappointments. Because let's be real, life throws us curveballs all the time.
It does.
And it's in those moments of falling and getting back up that we truly grow and learn.
That's right.
So true. So for all of you listening, think about a situation in your own life that you've been struggling to let go of. It could be a past hurt, a missed opportunity, or even a fear that's holding you back. What are some of those things that are weighing you down?
Yeah, what are you holding on to that's no longer serving you?
And as you reflect on those situations, think about how the principles we've discussed today can help you approach them with a fresh perspective.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How can you start to loosen the grip of those difficult emotions and find a sense of peace? Remember, it's a journey, not a destination.
Yeah.
And every small step you take towards letting go is a victory in itself.
It is.
I love that. It's about progress, not perfection, right?
Exactly.
Exactly. And remember, you are not alone in this journey. We all have our own imperfections and challenges.
We do.
But by embracing those imperfections and extending compassion to ourselves and others, we can create a more loving and fulfilling life.
Absolutely.
This has been such an insightful exploration of love for imperfect things, and I want to thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And to all of you amazing listeners out there, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it helpful and inspiring. Remember, you are worthy of love and happiness, just as you are imperfections and all.
And don't be afraid to embrace those imperfections and let your true self shine.
And if you're looking for more guidance on your journey of self-discovery and personal growth, be sure to check out our website, www.ultimatemasters.org, coaching, or WhatsApp us at +256 77 132 4119. We're here to support you every step of the way.
And don't forget to share this deep dive with your friends and family. They might be blessed with this information.
Absolutely. Spread the love and keep those amazing brains buzzing. We'll be back tomorrow with a brand new deep dive, so be sure to tune in. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep embracing those beautiful, imperfect selves.